Okay, you've seen the title, so let's get into it. We're going to paint this Fallout figure in hopefully less than 15 minutes. Let's go. First things first, we got to have a clock on display so you can see that we're going to do this in a good amount of time. I've taken the miniature outside and sprayed it black, and the first thing we're going to do is take some metallic paints, brush off most of it and overbrush it all over the model, using my favourite dark aluminium from Vallejo. This is using quick brush movements and not too much paint, and because we've primed them black, it will create a nice dirty metallic texture really quickly. Alright, base layer is now done. Now for the immediate highlights. Our shadows are already sorted by that primer. We're going to use some silver and do the exact same thing but with even less paint, so it's just the dry brush. The important thing when doing any kind of speed painting is to make each step as efficient as possible. So once this is done, that is all of our metallics complete. And, amazingly, all of our armour complete. Right, armour's done, now time for some more base coats. We're going straight in with Castellan Green for the lad's rifle. Laser rifle. I've played too much 40k and done far too much 40k lately. This is Fallout. I'm not using too much water to thin my paint here. I'm keeping it fairly thick so it can go on in one nice coat, which saves us a ton of time. It also helps this is a really small area to cover. Cleaning our brush off, we're going in for the next step, which is another really small detail, using Calidor Sky for the blue lenses all over the helmet. Using a sharp brush, I covered off this detail as quickly as possible, again with a fairly thick coat, but you do have to be careful not to make too many mistakes. If you make a mistake, that will slow you down here. So if you do make a mistake, wet the brush, wipe it away. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm going to come back to it in a bit because the paint is still available on my palette for easy access later. Now we're going to use Mournfang Brown for two steps, the base and adding some cool rust effects to the armour. This will break up that monotone steel look that we have right now. The simple thing with Mournfang Brown is just dilute it a little bit and run it into a couple of the recesses. If you don't go any further than this, it looks like good grime or old rust, but we're going to add an extra couple of layers that will really help it pop. As you can see in the transitions, there isn't actually too much time with brush on the model. Most of the time is actually spent switching out paints and tools, so if you have these easily accessible, it will really speed up your productivity. Now I'm covering off the base with some thinned down Mournfang Brown. This will come back to haunt me in a bit, not only because of the dodgy camera work, but also because I thinned it down quite so much. It took a fair amount of time to dry, which meant that the pigment stage that's coming up later was a little bit difficult. The next rust stage, just to help it really pop, is to add some Troll Slayer Orange into the exact same areas as the Mournfang Brown. This will look like newer, brighter oxidization. This is a really easy process of just basically painting by numbers. Exactly where you've put the Mournfang Brown, just do a smaller amount of this inside, just as thin. If it's a little bit translucent, that's brilliant too. What we're doing here is adding a ton of detail really quickly and really easily, so it makes it look like we spent loads of time on the model when really, as you can see, we haven't. Using some Nailac oxide now just to really add some of that rust effect and make it look different. This amount of weathering is always excellent for models that are mostly one colour, and I highly recommend it because it gets oranges and blues into an otherwise very monochromatic palette. Once again, I'm letting the rust areas guide where this is going. I'm going to have it dragging and dripping off of the rust like rainwater has caused it to happen. Next up, black parts like pipes. We're going to use some Black Legion, which is just one of the best paints going for this kind of thing, and slop it all over any exposed piping and joints. Technical paints, and contrast specifically, are an excellent addition to anybody who'd like to paint fairly quickly. They are a great one-coat tool, especially this black, and with the newer range of stuff there's some really good reds, greens and yellows as well. There's a little steel bar on the base that I want to add a bit more colour to, so I take some corn red and just dab it on and wet blend it into the Mournfang Brown and the black that's already on there. This just makes it look like flaking rust and is really simple, really quick, and people don't really look at the bases, so it's a win-win. Finishing off the lenses with some Baharoth Blue just to add a bit of a highlight to them, and this is where we're going to leave it for those lenses. Quick bit of highlighting, we're going to use some Nurgling Green to edge highlight the laser rifle we painted Castellan Green earlier. This will help it pop in a huge way because it goes straight from dark to a bright highlight, and because it's such a small area it will really stand out as a spot colour. Fallout laser rifles have a little yellow stripe near the base of the weapon on the green, so we're going to use that just to add another spot colour, in this case Avalan Sunset. Really quick, really easy, one coat, and don't worry too much if it's a little bit translucent because it's a really tiny area and it's a really beat up laser rifle, so it's fine. I also took this time to colour in the microfusion cell with the same colour, and also grab some black that was still on my palette just to top and tail it. Next up for a part of the job that's usually pretty easy, but in this case it was actually a little bit more difficult because the base was still wet. And that was mixing up my pigments and making sure it was nice and dusty on the base. Actually, wait, never mind, there's something else we've got to do first, and that's put some tufts down, because if you put the tufts down after, they ain't going to be dusty, so you put the tufts down first. Using the driest parts I could find, I added some super glue. The focus was entirely on the clock, because I can't do camera good. But yeah, super glue plus tufts equals a win, and then we throw the dust on. I applied this in a bit of a messy way. Normally I mix the two pigments on a dry palette beforehand and then add them to the base rather than just slap them on one at a time and blend them and hope for the best. But I was, on a bit of a time crunch here, so I threw on the Vietnam Earth and then followed it up with the paler one that I've forgotten the name of. I went and checked, it's just called Light Dust, which is pretty dull. Vietnam Earth is a better name. After getting the pigment everywhere, but that everywhere includes the base, so we're in for a winner here, we're good to just clean up the base rim using some Black Legion. One thick coat, as it says on the tin, let it dry, and your model is done. But because I filmed this all in a one, you just got to watch me do it now to prove that you can do this all in sub 15 minutes. And according to my phone, it was 12 minutes and 30 seconds-ish. And according to that clock, I chose an analog one because I didn't have a digital one just hanging about, so 12 minutes-ish is the answer. So can you complete a mini in less than 15 minutes? Absolutely. Is it the best mini ever? No. Did I choose a really easy one? Yes, but we still completed a mini in less than 15 minutes, so that's a win. Here's how it looks. I've been Sam, see you next time.